Today I'm going to tell you a story so raw, it leaves a knot in your chest, set deep in the American West, where dust hangs in the air and danger rides on every horizon. It's a land where fate collides with violence, and one wrong step can seal a life forever. It all began with a single scream at dawn, small enough to ignore, but powerful enough to change everything. Before we kick off this adventure, don't forget to hit like on the video, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. 5 years straight, I'd convinced myself I was finished. Finished with the badge. Finished carrying other people's messes. Finished trying to rescue souls that didn't want rescuing. Lydia Thorne lay buried in cold ground. Bram Thorne was back east studying law, and I'd settled into the idea of spending what was left of my life alone, patching fences, mending tack, and talking to horses that listened better than most men. That was the story I told myself. Then I heard her scream. Dawn was just breaking the sun, barely lifting its head above the land. I was down by the irrigation ditch near my fence line when the sound tore through the air, raw, defiant, not pleading for mercy but demanding attention. The strangest part, my first instinct wasn't to help. It was to turn away, ride back home, act like nothing reached my ears. I even started to do it. I'd gone maybe 10 feet when my horse stopped dead, planted like stone, as if he knew I was lying to myself. I turned him toward the noise and toward what I found. That's where the trouble truly began. Some days I wonder if riding the other way would have spared us both a lifetime of pain. But then I wouldn't have learned how to breathe again, and that counts for more than it sounds. This isn't a tale about heroes. It's about a man who forgot how to be one, and a woman who never needed saving. The Continental Spur Line had been carving through Apache land like a blade through meat, and everyone knew it. When the railroad wanted ground, it didn't negotiate. It erased obstacles. They paid men to do the erasing. When I topped the ridge and saw the scene below, my blood turned to ice. She was strapped to the tracks, not sloppily. Proper work. Thick hemp rope cinched tight around wrists and ankles knotted down to the wooden ties. Her body lay stretched along the rails like a sacrifice offered to iron and steam. 30 yards away, 3 men lounged by a campfire, passing whiskey laughing. One would glance her way now and then, and the laughter would swell. She wasn't crying. That's what struck me. Her Apache dress was torn at the shoulder, stained with dirt and blood. Her wrists were raw from fighting the bindings. But her eyes... God help me, her eyes burned. Pure fire. She didn't look at the men. She stared down the rails, listening to the sound we both heard growing closer. A construction train hauling timber and steel due through in 15 minutes. They weren't planning to kill her quickly. This was theater, a warning to anyone who dared stand in the railroad's path. I stayed mounted, counting the odds. 3 armed men bigger than me, younger than me, and meaner than I'd been in years. I had my Winchester, an old Colt, and surprise. Nothing else. That train was coming, and if I turned back, then I'd never know whether I could have changed anything. You ever feel your life split in 2? One road keeps you safe, isolated, untouched. The other remakes you into something you can't take back. I rode down slow, easy, playing the harmless rancher, checking his land. They didn't look up until I was close enough to smell the fire. "Morning, fellas," I said. I raised my voice, keeping it easy, almost neighborly. "That rail line cuts straight through my land. Care to explain what you're doing on it?" The biggest of them, shaggy beard belly straining his belt, finally bothered to look my way. His eyes were bloodshot from whiskey and lost sleep. "Old man," he slurred, lips curling. "Best keep riding. This don't concern you." I eased my jacket aside, just enough for him to see the badge. I'd kept it pinned inside my vest all these years. 5 winters since I wore it proper, yet I never found the will to throw it away. The change was instant. The big one stiffened. So did the others. "You're retired," one of them said, pushing himself to his feet. "That badge don't mean a damn thing out here." "Maybe not," I said, sliding my Winchester free slow and deliberate. "But this does." A train whistle split the air in the distance. 10 minutes out. Maybe less. "This is how it's going to work," I said. "You ride off now. I don't mention this to your friends at the Continental Spur line. They might not like hearing their hired hands are playing judge and executioner on company time." The skinny one moved for his gun. Bad choice. I put a round through his thigh before he cleared leather. He hit the dirt screaming, and the other two suddenly looked at me like I wasn't just some worn-out rancher. "Next shot won't be that kind," I said. "Get your man and get off my land." They hauled the wounded one up and damn near threw him onto a horse. Seconds later they were gone, leaving nothing but dust and angry shouts behind them. I knew better than to believe it was finished. Men like the Red Spike crew always came back heavier. I swung down and ran for the tracks. The train was close enough now that I could feel it through the soles of my boots, a deep vibration that crawled into your bones. I drew my knife and cut at the rope around her wrists. She watched me like I might be just another danger. "Easy," I said. "I'm getting you loose." The fibers parted. I moved for her ankles. She stayed silent, eyes dark, measuring. The whistle screamed again. 5 minutes, maybe less. The last rope fell away. I reached to help her up and she drove her fist into my jaw. Hard! My ears rang as I staggered back, hands raised. "All right," I said. "All right, I hear you. Don't touch." She spoke flawless English, sharp as glass. "I didn't ask for your help, white man." "Fair enough," I said, spitting blood. "But unless you want to finish this conversation under a moving train, I suggest we go." She glanced at the iron beast bearing down on us, then back at me. Pride lost to sense. She stood shaking hurt, but on her own, and we ran for the embankment. We'd barely cleared 20 feet when the construction train roared past, wheels, shrieking smoke, burning the air from our lungs. The ground shook so hard I thought my teeth would rattle free. When it was gone, silence slammed down around us. We stood there breathing like we'd just outrun death. I offered my canteen. She eyed it like it might be poison, then took it anyway, thirst winning the argument. She drank like she hadn't seen water in days, liquid spilling down her chin. When she handed the canteen back, our fingers brushed. She recoiled, as if I'd scorched her skin. "Why did they do that to you?" I asked. She held my gaze for a long beat, weighing me, deciding how much truth I deserved. Then she said, "I saw them poisoning the water at the reservation. They want the land for a depot." Her voice stayed level. "They want my people dead or driven off. It makes no difference to them. You need to go back. They'll hunt you again. I don't trust white men." "I'm not asking you to," I said. "I'm asking you to take the spare horse and ride or walk 15 miles on torn feet. Your call." She chose the horse. Not because she believed in me, but because she knew when survival mattered more than pride. We rode without speaking, her on my extra mount, keeping a careful 10 paces between us. Behind us I heard what I'd expected all along. Hoofbeats. "They're coming for you," she said. "Not a question." "They'll try," I answered. "My place is closer than the reservation. We'll hold there." She stared at me like I'd lost what sense I had left. "You got a better plan?" She didn't answer. When I pushed my horse harder, she matched me stride for stride. My homestead wasn't much to admire, a weather-beaten cabin, a small barn, a corral with 3 horses and 1 mule meaner than sin. But it had clear sight lines, thick walls, and enough ammunition to make a stand. At least that's what I told myself as we rode in. "Inside," I said as I dismounted. "There's a rifle in the corner. You know how to use it, my father taught me," she said. The first time she'd mentioned family. Before they killed him. There wasn't time for that story. The hoofbeats were closer now. She went straight for the rifle, checked the load like it was an extension of her hands, then took position by the window. No shaking, no fear, only a calm, deliberate readiness. I started to see her differently, not as someone to shield, but as someone who'd been fighting all her life and knew exactly how to stay alive. "What do I call you?" I asked, loading my weapons. She paused. "Now, Nish, it means the one who works." The mission school called me Sarah. "Take your pick. I'm not asking you to trust me," I said. "But if we're getting through the next few hours, we work together." "Can you do that?" She studied me, really studied me, like she was reading something carved deep. Whatever she found must have been enough. "I can," she said. "What do I call you?" she asked. "Most folks call me old man," I said, forcing a smile. "You can stick with white man if that suits you." For a split second, almost nothing, I saw her mouth twitch. Almost a smile. Then a voice cut through the air outside. "We know she's in there, old man. Send her out and nobody else has to bleed." I went to the window. 6 riders this time. Not 3. At the front of the group sat a tall rider, stone-faced, balanced in the saddle like he'd been born there. This wasn't some half-drunk thug from a rail gang. This was a man who made a living ending other people's lives. I knew it the moment I saw him. "She's under my protection," I called out. "If you want her, you come through me." "So be it," the man answered without hesitation. Boys lighted up. Fire arrows. I should have known that was coming. The first arrow struck the roof with a dull thud. Seconds later, the smell of smoke crept through the cabin. Saya moved before I could even speak, snatched a blanket, soaked it in the water bucket, and scrambled up to the loft. She was smothering flames before my mind caught up to her hands. No panic, no wasted motion, just sharp, controlled action. Then the back door blew inward. 2 men rushed through. I dropped the first before he crossed the threshold. The second fired wild, the shot chewing splinters from the wall beside my head. I answered, and he went down hard, but I could hear more boots now circling, probing, looking for weak spots. "Saya," I shouted. "Get down here." She dropped from the loft just as another fire arrow punched through the window. Smoke rolled thick across the ceiling. Time was slipping fast. Then came another sound, hoofbeats, but different, familiar, and a voice I hadn't heard in 2 years. "Hold your fire. Friendly coming in." Marek Ibarra burst through the smoke like something summoned by gunpowder and prayer, his scarred face and dark eyes unmistakable. He kicked the door shut behind him, breathing hard. "Marek," I said, stunned. "What in hell are you doing here? Heard you might be in trouble," he said, then spotted Saya. His eyes widened. "Is that the woman they tied to the tracks?" "Long story," I said. "They brought in a professional," Marek went on. "Name's Voss Keenan, regulator. Continental Spur Line hired him special." "I figured," I said. "How many 6 total?" "Keenan and 5 more." He lifted his hand, revealing a stick of dynamite. "Brought a gift. Courtesy of the mining camp." That's the thing about fighting beside people who know their trade, you don't need speeches. We locked eyes once, nodded, and moved. Saya took the front windows. I covered the rear. Marek headed for the barn with the dynamite. Anyone trying to circle us that way would regret it. "They'll rush us at dawn," I said. "Right before first light when we're worn down and blind. That's when they'll come." Saya agreed. "Then we make them pay for every inch." Her voice stayed steady, but her hands trembled just enough to tell the truth. Not fear, adrenaline. Anger. A lifetime of being cornered, and finally the chance to push back. We worked through the night. Marek set his traps. Saya showed me how to read broken twigs, scuffed dirt, the quiet signs of men moving in the dark. I showed her how to reload my Colt faster, the old trick my partner taught me 20 years back. Near midnight, we paused, sat at the table eating cold beans and hardtack. No fire couldn't risk it. The cabin sat in near darkness, lit by a single candle. "Why are you doing this?" Saya asked. "You don't know me. You could have left me to die." I looked at her, really looked at her, and didn't answer right away. I really looked at her then. She couldn't have been more than 25, young enough to have been my daughter. Dirt and smoke streaked her face. Her dress was torn. Her wrists still bled where the ropes had bitten into them. But her eyes, they pulled at something buried deep. They reminded me of someone, of everyone I'd ever failed to save. "I had a wife once," I said quietly. "A good woman. Lydia Thorne. When fever tore through town 5 years back, she cared for anyone who needed it. Didn't matter if they had money, didn't matter what color they were. She helped because that's who she was. Then she fell sick herself, and all the people she'd saved couldn't save her in return. I wore a badge back then. Thought I was doing some good in the world. But I couldn't stop disease. Couldn't put death in irons. So I walked away," I said. "Figured if I couldn't save the one person who mattered most, what was the point?" "And now?" she asked. "Now I think I had it wrong," I said. "Maybe you don't help people because you can save everyone. Maybe you do it because you can save someone, and maybe that has to be enough." We sat in silence for a while. Then she spoke again. "My people believe the dead don't want us to stop living. They want to be remembered by what we carry forward." "Not by surrendering," I said. She nodded. "The railroad, the treaties, the reservations, they're killing us slowly. That's why some of us watch. That's why I was watching them." "Recording what they're doing," Marek Ibarra said. "Someone has to." "You have proof?" he asked. She nodded once. "Hidden near the reservation. Papers, maps, bottles of poison, all of it." "Then that's what they're after," I said. "Not revenge. Evidence. If it reaches the right hands, Continental Spur Line bleeds, and that means they'll kill everyone in this cabin before sunrise," Marek said. "No pressure." Despite everything, Saya almost smiled. We didn't sleep. We talked instead. Marek told stories from the old days when he and I rode together wearing badges and believing the world could be bent straight. I told her about Bram Thorne. How proud I was that my boy chose law. Words over bullets. Justice without blood. And Saya, slowly and with care, spoke of her father Enoch. How he'd served as a scout for the army. How he tried to walk between two worlds. How railroad men murdered him when he refused to sign away his land. He taught me everything she said, how to track, how to endure, how to be strong. She paused. "He told me the world will try to break you. Don't let it." "Break back," I said. She nodded. "Yes." For just a moment, her voice faltered, the smallest crack in that iron composure. Then it was gone. Around 4 a.m, Marek Ibarra lifted his head. "They're moving. We took our places." The world was pitch black, that heavy darkness just before dawn, when you can't see your own hand. Then Voss Keenan's voice slid out of the night. "Last chance, old man. Send her out. Come take her," I shouted back, and hell answered. They hit us hard and fast. Clean. Professional. No drunken rush, no wasted shots. These men knew their work. Fire arrows streaked overhead, most of them thudding into the roof. I heard Saya cursing in Apache as she fought the flames, but there were too many. The barn went first, not from their arrows, but from Marek's dynamite. 2 men tried to flank us that way. The blast tore the dark open like an early sunrise. My ears rang, and when I glanced out, 1 man lay still, while another dragged himself through the dirt, legs shredded. 4 left, Marek shouted. 3 rushed the front door. Saya fired, worked the lever, fired again. One took it square in the chest and spun down. The other two reached the porch. I moved to help her, but Marek was already there, his revolver cracking 3 sharp reports. When the smoke thinned, Voss Keenan stood alone in the yard. His coat was spotless, his face calm as a church morning. He surveyed his dead, the burning barn, my cabin. "You're good," he called. "Better than I expected. But you're boxed in and burning. So here's my offer, the woman for your lives. She comes out, you walk away." "No deal," I shouted. "I wasn't asking you," Keenan said. "I was asking her." For a heartbeat, I thought she might take it. Saya looked at me, at Marek, at the flames chewing into the roof. "We were going to die in there if something didn't change." "No," she said. "Just that. I'm done running." Keenan shrugged. "Pity. You seem capable." He drew his pistol. "The boys wanted you breathing. Me, I just want you dead." He fired 3 shots through the window. One tore into Saya's side, spinning her down. Blood spread across her torn dress. I screamed, actually screamed, something I hadn't done since Lydia Thorne died, and fired back blind, emptying my Winchester through the glass. Keenan laughed. "Dry already, old man," he called. "Why don't you step out and we finish this proper?" I didn't let him finish. I dropped the rifle, drew. My Colt kicked the door open and charged. Stupid. Hell yes. But I was past caution, past planning, past sense. She had fought beside me, trusted me with her life. Now she was bleeding on my floor while some smug bastard in a fine coat cracked jokes. Keenan's eyes widened. He hadn't planned on madness. He fired and missed. I fired and caught him in the shoulder. He stumbled, and I closed the distance. We hit the ground together, rolling through dirt and ash, too close for gunfire. It turned into a raw fight fist's elbows, his knee slamming into my ribs with a crack that told me something gave way. He was younger, stronger. He forced himself on top of me, fingers crushing my throat. The world narrowed to a tunnel, black sparks popping at the edges of my sight. So this is how it ends. Then Saya appeared behind him, blood-soaked, swaying but upright, and buried her knife into his back. Voss Keenan's eyes blew wide. He tried to turn, tried to lift his gun. She stabbed him again, and again. When she finished, there was no doubt left in the dirt. She let the knife fall and collapsed. I dragged myself to her, my throat on fire lungs, screaming, ribs shattered or close enough. I got my hands on the wound and pressed hard. "Don't you die," I rasped. "Don't you dare die on me." Her eyelids fluttered. "White man," she whispered, "you're heavier than you look." "That's the spirit," I said. "Keep talking. Stay with me." Marek Ibarra was there too, blood soaking his shoulder from a wound I hadn't even noticed. "I'll get the doctor," he said. "Hold on." "Both of you," Saya murmured. "Fools. Should have let me go." "Shut up," I said, my voice shaking. "Just shut up and breathe." She tried to smile. It didn't quite land. Then her eyes closed. They say time slows down. That's a lie. When you're waiting to see if someone lives or dies, time doesn't crawl, it stops. The 3 hours it took Marek to return with Doc Bellamy felt like 3 years. I sat on that blood-slick floor holding pressure, talking to her, even though she couldn't hear a word. "You don't get to die," I told her. "Not now. Not after all this. I just started learning how to live again, and I'll be damned if you leave before teaching me the rest." The doctor arrived, old, half-drunk, but his hands were steady when it mattered. He dug the bullet out, stitched her up, pressed laudanum into my palm, and rattled off instructions I barely registered. Then he looked at me and said, "She's got a fighter's spirit. That counts for more than medicine." She woke 2 days later. I was slumped in a chair beside the bed when I heard her voice rough as gravel. "White man, you snore." I almost cried. Almost. Instead I said, "And you're a terrible patient. Call it even." Sheriff Orrin Kells showed up later after Merrick filled him in. Turned out Keenan carried papers, contracts, maps, letters from railroad men. Everything Saya had seen was right there in his saddlebag. The Continental Spur line cut ties fast, claimed Keenan acted alone, paid compensation to the reservation. It wasn't justice, but it was something. When Saya was strong enough to sit up, Marek came by. "The council wants you back," he told her. "They need you to help negotiate with the government. Someone who knows both tongues, both worlds." She looked at me. I met her gaze. "You have to go," I said. "Your people need you," I said. "That evidence, it won't fix everything. But it can shift something." "And you?" she asked. "I'll stay here," I said. "Mending fences, talking to horses, same routine." "Liar," she said, and smiled as she said it. The morning she left, I walked her out to her horse. Marek Ibarra waited a polite distance away, giving us space neither of us quite knew how to use. "The council will need help," she said. "Someone who understands white man's law, someone they can trust." "Will you come?" she asked. "Not as a lawman, as a friend." I looked at her. This woman who'd punched me, fought beside me, nearly bled out on my floor. The one who'd taught me that saving a single person doesn't mend the world, but it can change a world. Sometimes that has to be enough. "I'll come," I said. "Give me a month to set things straight here. Then I'll ride to the reservation." She reached for my hand. Her grip was firm, despite the wound in her side. "Thank you," she said, for not turning away. "Thank you," I said, for letting me stand with you. She rode off with Merrick, and I stayed there until they were nothing but dust against the horizon. Then I went back inside my cabin, half-burned, blood-stained, riddled with bullet holes. It needed work. So did I. But for the first time in 5 years, I had a reason. Here's what I learned. Redemption isn't about erasing what came before. It's about earning what comes next. I couldn't save Lydia Thorne. But I could save Saya. And through her, maybe help her people, or at least give them a chance to fight on their own terms. Is that enough? I don't know. Ask me in another 5 years. But when I lie down now, I don't see my wife's face twisted with fever. I see Saya standing in the yard, bloodied and unbowed, refusing to run. That's something worth waking up for. I kept my word. A month later, I rode to the reservation, helped them read contracts, taught the young ones how to spot lies dressed up as promises. Saya and I, we aren't lovers if that's what you're thinking. She walks her road. I walk mine. But our paths cross often enough. When they do, we sit by a fire and remember the night we chose not to quit. That's all any of us can do. Refuse to give up. Refuse to let the worst men win. When someone's tied to the tracks of this life, you cut them loose even if it costs you. Because that's how you keep your soul, one hard choice at a time. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got fences to mend. Story of my life. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for listening, and for allowing this story to speak to your heart. The Wild West still holds countless truths, some painful, some tender, all worth remembering. Stay with us. Subscribe, comment, and invite others to discover these untamed stories. From our hearts to yours. Thank you for being part of this journey. Aviso legal barra disclaimer. Each story shared here is produced for storytelling enjoyment. Certain scenes may include fictional or dramatized elements inspired by historical circumstances. Although AI tools assist us in visuals narration and script development, the emotional tone editing and quality control are conducted by people to ensure meaningful experiences. We fully uphold YouTube's policies, using no deceptive recreations or impersonations of real individuals. All creative resources are properly licensed. Unauthorized copying, re-uploading, or remixing is not permitted. Thank you for supporting the effort behind every episode we create.